Entrepreneurship at UBCO programs are designed to give our faculty, students, our recent alumni, and our staff an opportunity to get real-life perspectives on the challenges they're facing as they bring their innovation to market. This year we have 23 teams participating in our E at UBCO Accelerator program, almost 90 people in total. And I've found many of them are focused on business-to-business innovations. And it's really tough to figure out how to reach a potential customer, to learn and understand more about whether the product has a real market potential. And it's also difficult as they move to the stage where they're looking for a first pilot, business development, and sales. So this program is really designed to help provide perspectives on how to travel that journey. The CEO Strategy Forum is a program that we do twice a year, and we bring CEOs of varying backgrounds who talk about their experiences growing their companies, some of their challenges, some of the other activities that they're involved in the community. The program is sponsored by Lawson Lundell, and Lawson Lundell was the founding sponsor of the program. It's been invaluable for our ventures at this stage, and we're really excited to bring these particular CEOs and founders together for you tonight. Lawson Lundell sponsors this program in the leadership dinners, and at the Smart Cities Leadership Dinner, Michael McCauley invited Brad, who's going to be our first speaker, and also Keith, who's going to back cleanup. And they had so many insights and were so engaged in building the innovation communities that they come from that I decided to add them to the roster tonight. And then at the Future of Health Cancer Leadership Dinner we had recently, Anne-Marie sat with me, and there again I realized that she could bring a lot of insights to the discussion tonight. So thank you, Lawson Lundell, for your sponsorship, as well as the value add that you're bringing to this program. I think I'd like to get us kicked off and have Michael come up and introduce our first speaker, who is also one of his clients. So he knows the company really well and can share with you a little bit about Lawson Lundell, but a little bit about Smart One Technologies.
Thanks very much, Camille. So I'll keep remarks on the firm very, very brief. Most of you, I think, are familiar with us. We're a Western Canadian-based full-service business law firm. We recently opened an office back in 2017 in Kelowna in the Innovation Center here, around the same time that UBCO was getting kicked off. Very excited to be here tonight speaking at this particular CEO Summit, specifically because when we opened the office here, part of our objective was really not just to help to contribute to growing the tech community in Kelowna or in the Okanagan region, but really in the interior region of BC overall. There's exciting things going on across the province, and I think the panelists tonight really helped to highlight that and drive home, particularly exciting things that are happening in other communities around the southern interior. So I'm particularly excited to introduce our first speaker tonight, Mr. Brad Pauman. Brad is the founder and CEO of Nelson-based Smart One Technologies. Smart One is reinventing vending machines by taking outdated and underutilized traditional vending machines and allowing them to be retrofitted with a 49-inch smart touchscreen that turns the vending machine into an interactive, engaging, and web-enabled display capable of both disseminating and capturing valuable data, recognizing users, and playing roles in the delivery of healthcare, retail, and smart city grid previously unimaginable for vending machines. In addition to his work with Smart One, Brad is also a leader in building the innovation ecosystem in the Kootenays, including through founding the Nelson Tech Club Hackerspace, previously serving as lab director at the Midas Maker Lab, and his involvement in regional initiatives such as Startup Nelson and Ladies Learning Code. Brad likes to refer to himself as Mr. Technology because of his passion for all things tech, and I'm sure that that enthusiasm will come through tonight. So please join me in welcoming Brad Pauman to the stage.
Thanks, Mike. So yes, I'm from Nelson, BC, and in the house. So I moved there 10 years ago. I grew up in Alberta, and I went to NAIT, did a computer programming there, and one of the first things I did when I moved to Nelson is I built this little hackerspace, and it quickly grew from 15 to 500 members in a town of 10,000, so 5% of the population coming out. And what I recognized is that my efforts needed to scale if I wanted to be able to reach more members. So I tried to come up with a technology that could be brought into schools that would allow us to be able to vend products, but also then include information that could be used at that point of access. Shortly thereafter, we recognized there was a much bigger opportunity, and thus Smart One Technologies was born. And it really started by taking probably the dumbest piece of hardware on the planet and now giving it a new brainstem. Our technology is called the Brainstem Toolbox. And what it does is allow us to connect the equivalent of a 4-foot iPhone and be able to use that to now capture data, introduce new products, and connect people around the planet. So it's a 4-foot iPhone. You're taking the glass off of a vending machine and you are now connecting it. Now, touchscreen vending machines are not a new idea. Vending machines have had touchscreens for about 7 to 10 years. But the problem being is it was locked down by a couple companies that were pushing these out. So what we've done is democratized access to that technology in the same way that anybody can build a web page, anybody now can utilize our technology to actually introduce automated retail and those types of technologies into their business. We're capturing here a potential of 15 million existing vending machines around the world because we didn't just pick one brand to do this on. We built a technology that lets us leverage everybody's best technology, the hardware. Nothing wrong with a vending machine. They've been doing the same thing for 15 to 30 years. In fact, the technologies under the hood have remained absolutely static, and it's actually the part that's kept them from moving ahead. So one of the things that I really wanted to be able to talk about a little bit tonight, because a lot of the people in the crowd are in the entrepreneur space, and I've been an entrepreneur my whole life, but I didn't recognize it until just a few years ago that I had a lot of those traits. And I think this phrase behind me here, someone who jumps off a cliff and builds a plane on the way down is exactly my style. I'm always about jumping on every soapbox that somebody gives me to stand on and talk about my messages. I like reaching the thousands of people, and now I'm giving audiences in Amsterdam and Vegas and Dallas to a lot of really big companies and potential movers and shakers that I think I can influence just by talking about a much grander future than what a lot of we expect the companies to actually build. We need boots on the ground to actually do that. So I'm going to keep this slide up here for a little bit here because I really think this is what encapsulates my life. Let's start with the why. You're passionate about something, and that something is what should drive you through your life. And if you can find that and you can engage on that level and be able to understand what you can do with that technology or do with your idea, you're off to a great start. And it's not just the what am I making. I'm not just building a touchscreen vending machine, because if I was building that, it was already invented. And snack machines, everybody understands what a vending machine does. There's so much more potential. So that's where we lead into, well, why is Brad doing this? Well, I want to engage people. I want to be able to make the world a better place than where I found it or where I've come into it. And that's my why. I want to engage people. I want to help people. I want to be able to now take things that are problems and offer solutions. So I've been working on telling a better story. I started by building the Tech Club. And then in Trail, BC, you're going to find yourself an MIT-based facility that now has $1 million worth of equipment. Everything from laser scanners to 3D printers and CNC mills that's available to public, commercial, educational entities. And they're using this on a rural scale to be able to compete now with where all the rest of the money is going, usually great big urban centers. But you walk into a small town like Trail, BC, that's under 10,000 population, you can walk into that place and use any piece of equipment on any day of the week for $75 a month. That's a $100,000 laser scanner. That's a $50,000 CNC for barely a couple coffees a month. You can get into that. When I started building these facilities, I had to then eat my own dog food. And a good way to be able to extrapolate on that is, if you're talking about something, people are going to call you on it. If you're not talking up a great game and you're not able to back that up with substantiation that you would eat your own dog food, in fact, if I invented a dog food, probably should be good to me, because you know what? Every time I've ever owned a dog, it really likes what's on my plate. That's probably a pretty good indicator of where to start with on the taste level. But when we started inventing this technology for vending machines, we didn't expect so many opportunities, so many people to be invigorated that this little box could cause so much excitement. As we started to go down this route, we recognized that we're just this little tiny BC rural company, and there's a lot of big dogs out there that want to eat our dog food. They want to steal our ideas. They want to be able to have us ship a product so that they can now reverse engineer it. It's exactly how we built our product. I bought a vending machine, I reverse engineered it 12 ways from Sunday and figured out how it worked, because the industry wouldn't work with me. So I took matters into my own hand, figured out how it worked, created a solution, and figured out how to scale that solution. So now we've met partners that can produce 1,000 screens a day, ship them anywhere in the world, no cost to us. And what's the important part is that they're already distributors in this. They're arcades and amusements and vending machines, but they don't speak a lick of software. They don't understand the technology sell, because they sell the video games. They don't build the video games they sell. So being able to find ways that you can protect your idea, but also be able to get it out there is really important. So a lot of trade secret goes into our secret sauce, but also being able to call upon my favorite lawyers in the world. Well, they're making sure that when I walk into that meeting with Intel, or I walk into a really big partner meeting, I'm ready for that conversation. My favorite thing to do on all the trips that I'm taking now is Audible. I have a book every single trip, and it's helping me engage at a new level that I was never prepared for. There's no support system for like this in the rural BC region, and so now I can start to tap into those resources. So this is where it comes to know your network. Who are you surrounding yourself with? So when I was doing this in BC, in Nelson area, I'm surrounding myself with the educators, the governance, so the municipalities. I'm seeing that there's common problems. So every little small town is trying to become a smart city, but they haven't got a clue where to start. They're putting in smart parking meters, they're putting small solutions in that you could search for tourist listings. But beyond that, there's not a lot of infrastructure going on. So it was starting to now find out, where can I leverage that network? How can I connect to the outside world? Because I found out I can bring all those connections home, but it meant I had to travel to find them in the first place. I had to strike up that conversation, have a really good conversation so they want to reach back to me, and now that's happening time and time again. I was the change in my own world. I was really eager to be able to help people adopt technologies, and helping hundreds, if not now thousands of youth adopt things like Arduino, Raspberry Pi, exciting things they're learning in their STEM classes. It all started with the idea of a vending machine that's now growing into a way that I can apply that technology to healthcare, to retail. Everything about the world and you're interacting with it is now a point of access. The same experience that happens on the vending machine can also be sent right to your phone, so you can collect data on multiple scales. So when you're starting to think about your ideas, think about how your network is going to grow, what pieces you need to be able to have in place to be able to create those synapses and join them together. Because if you have an idea, it started with a couple synapses firing, but if it didn't continue to fire and it didn't continue to connect, that thought would never have been formed. We fail fast every single day. We try things, we break things. We did this with the vending machine. We tried 30 different ways to be able to do this. One of the biggest things we did was have a company search for existing IP. And what that found was, well, there was somebody out there already that invented this. And in fact, what happened is our partners introduced us to Intel. Intel had a patent that was exactly what we created. Intel isn't one to take that product to market. They find companies to now take it and leverage that for them. And what we were able to do then is now use their bag of tricks to be able to now grow our company into new exciting areas of technology. And being that fast learner, you need to be the trial by fire. You need to be the one who's actually implementing boots on the ground, because nobody's going to give you a leg up. Everybody's got an opinion, everybody's got an idea where you should go, but if you're not the one driving it, someone else is going to probably, I was going to say shit on your parade, but really at the end of the day, it's all about you driving your own bus, being able to take it to the end position that you see as a viable result. And if you're not the one driving it, someone else is probably going to try and steal your thunder. So this is probably the best way that I could sum up where we are today. If Henry Ford had asked their existing customers what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. We're taking something that was perceived as being one of the simplest but locked down technologies, and democratizing it opened up a lot of new opportunities for us. So when you're driving your technology, be aware that there's going to be a lot of people saying, hey, I just want a faster horse. Your idea might not necessarily hit home right away. But if you keep hitting the ground, you're pushing it out there, and you're taking everything that you've culminated into your excitement, your passion, and your direction, you're going to be able to hit places that you didn't know were possible. This is one of the reasons that now I'm traveling about 4 months out of the year, a week at a time, all over, and just talking about my passion projects, because nobody else is going to be able to do it like I can. And if you're an entrepreneur, be your own champion. Be your advocate. Be the one who's willing to stand on that soapbox, put yourself out there, and talk about a much grander vision. I'm not your typical technology guy. I drive a Harley. I cook. I raise 2 little girls, and I do it in a rural area that's connected to fiber internet. And that's the only outlet that I really needed. So at the end of the day, I get to come home into the most beautiful part of the planet. I didn't have to give up what I wanted to do to Toronto and Vancouver. And from the Kootenays, we're going to start building this ecosystem of smart cities that vending machines happen to be one of the connection points, one of many. And our product is not just about hardware, it's about the platform. It's about the idea that there's something much bigger than that chip and chocolate bar machine who just ate your money, and in fact could actually be providing you directions, could be providing you medication, could be checking on you just to make sure you're okay, and maybe you need to call home. These are things that it looks like a phone booth, smells like a phone booth, but ultimately it could be that you're getting a bag of chips out of it and you're getting to book your Uber. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Camille and Sarah, for organizing this, and I'm really looking forward to the evening. And so, my name's Morgan Elle. I've got a company called DPace, and we've got a number of shareholders now, including my brothers and some of the key employees, and as you mentioned, a 50% partner from New Zealand. So I'll talk a little bit about our history, so you know a little bit about us. We were started in 1995. My wife got a job as the first city planner in Nelson. I was just finishing my PhD, and I wanted to live with her, of course, you know. So that's actually what got me into business. I went there, and I had been working with a company called UBCO, which had a technology transfer from Triumph, one of Canada's major particle accelerator labs at UBC. And now they're called Advanced Cyclotron Systems, but they were in the very first part of technology transfer to make cyclotrons, a type of accelerator for radioisotope tracers for nuclear medicine. And so I was finishing up my PhD, and I asked whether I could work as a telecommuter from Nelson, and the internet was just sort of good enough that I could do that at that time. And they said no, not as an employee. They didn't want to set that precedent, so I had to start a company. And we did that together, the only urban planning and accelerator company. But anyways, now it's strictly accelerators. But anyhow, where did we go from there? So then the next thing, it's funny, the little things that nudge you along. Maybe a little bit like you said, Brad. I think I am an entrepreneur, but I didn't really know it, for a while, and eventually realize it. And so one of the next things was our accountant going, well, you can't have one customer. You're going to be taxed like an employee. And oh, okay, I better get another customer. And so in addition to EBCO, worked with Triumph, and then started to go around the globe. And so we mostly design things for other companies for quite a while, and I was trying to look at different ways to grow, and it's a little bit hard. It's a hardware kind of oriented company. You need quite a bit of money to develop products and stuff for hardware, and especially with particle accelerators. And for a few tens of thousands, we could make some little detectors, so we started with things like that. But in sort of about 2013, and I tried different things, talked to different venture capital people and in different ways. And actually one of the neat things that actually helped is I talked to a fellow in Nelson who had become quite wealthy in the mining sector, and just asked him for some advice at lunch. And he said to hold an advisory board meeting. So we actually flew people from around the world, like one of the, a big cyclotron company in Belgium. It's a $1 billion company. It was kind of interesting. Brought those people to Nelson, Triumph Labs, different, and they had this idea that probably the best thing would be if this Buckley Systems from New Zealand, who was making most of the equipment we were designing for other people, if they bought into us and seeded some money into there. So that's what happened. They bought into us, and the money didn't go to us as owners. It was cash into the company, and then there was a plan, an R&D plan for developing new products, but also with some business and sales goals. And so every year, if we met those goals, we got more cash injection. So it was kind of a neat way to encourage us to really do what we said we would do. And you'll see a little bit about that in a moment. So maybe I'll go on to the next thing here. Whoops. So one little aside, again, I think part of tonight is just to give some tips and little slices of things that we've learned. So we develop about 50% of our technology as our own, and 50% we license from labs, and then further improve it. And one of the neat things that I like about, well, first of all, I wanted to mention there's a connection between sales and R&D. So I think earlier in my life, I maybe didn't have a great opinion of marketing salespeople or whatever. And then it's a big part of my job now, and I realize that it's actually quite connected to the R&D role. And so I really love it because I get to go around the world to hundreds of labs, multinational, small companies, universities, and see what they're doing. It's all confidentiality agreements, and so I can't spread it and tell you details about it, but it's fascinating for me as a technical person, and then I get to see what the problems are in the industry or for individual companies, and our R&D projects will lead to new products, and so that ties into our marketing and sales. And then I realize that even our students, we've got PhD students that are working on things that we hope will come to products in 4 or 5 years, and their papers, their technical publications are important. It's starting to create an aura of, hey, these people are really good experts in certain areas, and that's a kind of marketing, even though we're doing technical publications. And there's trade show booths, and there's all those sorts of things, meeting customers and whatnot. But anyways, I quite like it now, and it's actually, in a way, the fun part of physics. It's all the figuring out the solving of problems and whatever, and for me that's fun. And then of course there's the technical details and a lot of work to make it happen. It's a kind of a strong relationship type of business. It's person to person, and it's quite, I would say, truthful. Like it's high tech type stuff, and either the specs work or they don't. There's no spin or anything for the most part. And the other thing I find is that there's great cooperation even between the competitors. Like, we'll meet at conferences, have lunch together, share a certain amount of information. It's quite collegial, and I think part of it's because we often end up working together at times. It's that kind of industry. A couple things about agreements. Many of the universities don't have agreements in place yet. Maybe they haven't done a technology transfer before. So we have our own. Other things to appreciate is the labs think differently. They have different mandates. They might not have a mechanism to give you a quote. Let's say they need to help you want them to help you with something. So that could be a big deal. That could take them months to figure that out. And so, some patience there. But you can get some big help from them, like they could save you 20 years of R&D or something like that. So there's some real pluses too, of course. And one of the other kind of neat things, it's not like working with another company. The professors and students are publishing, so that's how they push forward their careers. So there's some knowledge going out that way, and also you have scientists from around the world doing experiments at all the different universities and labs back and forth. So if you do licensing something from a university, it's there could be some leaking of the technology, but you've got to weigh that up. It still could be an overall advantage for you to be involved with it. And I also like to say it doesn't stop there. It's not like we're just using their idea. We continue to make the equipment. So here you can see, so on the left are sort of the university devices. They're probably doing something to a very high, sophisticated, constraint or specification, but it can look a little homemade. And so part of this, what we do is, of course, there's an aesthetic side to it for sales, and also often a reliability and robustness side to it. And also we might be even advancing the specs. We will, the R&D continues. We're continuing with our own R&D. So it's not that we're just copying. And the other thing I'd like to say is we're really proud of paying royalties and whatnot to particularly the Canadian institutions, but also around the world where we license technology. So with that, going back to that New Zealand Buckley's buy-in, and this was a thing we tried to do within Canada, as I proposed to some local colleges and whatnot to make an ion source test facility, and I said we're going to be able to have PhD projects, develop products and masters, and even technical projects, like even at the level of, let's say at Selkirk College, welders and electricians could work with it and so forth. And we applied for funding, this is about 12 years ago. And we had MOUs from Triumph and from other places around Canada and Lawrence Berkeley Lab and things like that. And we didn't get the funding. And ultimately, we did it through the private sector, through this investment from Buckley's. And it's doing exactly what we said it would. We've got PhD students coming through. And that whole device, that's an ion source system over there on the left. And that's a system that we now sell. It was our prototype. We were proving we could do it. We sell those for about $1 million a piece now, and that's part of our growth. And a lot of the bits and pieces of that system are also products. That's this long list over here. So that was a neat thing that sort of sprung out of that investment. And now that we've made that prototype, we didn't want to just junk it. So that's why we now use it as a test bed and are starting to develop other technologies. And then I'm going to quickly just talk about some of the industries. People might wonder, what are particle accelerators used for? Well, that's for medicine. So even here in Kelowna, you would have, if you're having cancer treatments, electron linacs, linear accelerators that either directly treat you with electrons or they'll hit a foil and X-rays or gamma rays will come out to treat the cancer. There are a lot of those. There's other things called carbon therapy, proton therapy. There's something called boron neutron capture therapy we're involved with. Then the biggest one is number 2, actually, which is related to this. So ion implanters, there's probably, to now, like something like 25,000 ion implanters. And these are nowadays about the size of this whole middle section here. So that's the size of the accelerator. It's like a clean room. It's in a housing. And at the end of it will be, this is a wafer. This is the heart of 50 computer chips here. And this could be 1,000 computer chips. It just depends on the size of the chip. And so to make a computer chip, you have to embed ions, implant ions into the silicon at different depths. And there's a whole recipe of different ions, different depths, and there's lithography, and you've got to cut these chips up and all kinds of things. And so big companies, billion-dollar companies like Applied Materials and Axcelis and Sumitomo Ionic Technologies, and we're building one of their next-generation systems in little old Nelson, BC right now, and AIBT out of Taiwan. So they're billion-dollar companies making the equipment that are called ion implanters that they sell to Apple, Intel, Samsung, so forth to make their chips. So these accelerators, hundreds of them, will fill a fab. If you've heard the word a fab, it's gone up in Taiwan for Apple to make chips. That's a building full of particle accelerators with these at the end, and they get embedded. And if you look closely at it, you would see 50 squares there of these chips. So that's one of the big industries that we're connected to. industrial electron beam accelerators, you can vulcanizing tires, sterilizing medical equipment. And then, of course, the more obvious one that people know, discovery science. So there's big labs like CERN. You know, right now, the biggest accelerator in the world, 27 kilometers around, partially under France and Switzerland in the Geneva area. And there's about 1,000 universities with smaller accelerators for things like carbon dating and other things. And there's a couple other ones. When I'm talking about these revenue ones, this is more for the Buckley Systems, the company that's bought into. They're quite tied into the ion implantation side. DPACE, our company, is more a third. But anyways, my role now, I was the founder of DPACE, but I'm what's called the Chief Science and Innovation Officer of both Buckley's and DPACE. And I'm kind of leveraging our two client lists. Like DPACE actually had a lot more customers. We've got a couple hundred customers and NDAs with all of them. And we're introducing Buckley's to those customers. And Buckley's has fewer, but it's really tough, as Camille was saying, to enter into the ion implantation. Top secret, very, very strict and tough kind of confidentiality agreements. And they don't want to give anything away. So the first meetings you go in and you're talking to them, we at DPACE, we do this, we can make this and design this, or do research into that, and it's all, and so it's a long process. Eventually I had a beer with somebody after, and then we talked a bit more, and they mentioned that they had a problem. So, I threw a PhD project on it. So that just tells you the time scale. So that's like 4 or 5 years later that something's going to come out of it. And so, but that goodwill was there. Okay. And that's a public domain thing, and they like everything top secret. So I won't say it has anything to do with you. We're just doing it. We're just saying generally, the semicon sector is interested in this, and we're going to do a PhD on it, but it's for you. And so they've kind of warmed up to us, and I'm really excited to say that some of our ion sources, so the things that shoot the initial ions, are being built into ion implanters now through this introduction from Buckley's, which I'm very thankful for. And it's been, again, a long, long process of jumping through hoops, and I could tell you all kinds of stories. Sumitomo in Japan is the same thing. And then, like Brad was saying, there's a lot of travel. So I've done 16 international business trips this year, and a lot of that's conferences, but individual customer visits and connecting with people. One of the other things I just want to say, so one's kind of interesting. This could be in Kelowna Hospital, kind of a scanner on the medical side. Buckley's has done 2,000 of the magnets that have gone into these. This is a big, from the Belgian company that I mentioned. We sell an ion source into theirs. This is for radioisotope tracers for nuclear medicine, for medical imaging to find your cancer. And actually, this is back to the ion implantation side. This one is really cool. Oh, by the way, over there, the man in the white there, or woman, I'm not sure, that connection, or sorry, that box holds 25 of these. So a robotic arm comes and grabs each one of these out, unpackages it, puts it into the beam. So there's several pods of those there, and they're full of magnets and other accelerator equipment. This here is a 35-ton magnet made to implant flat panel displays like are up there, but great big ones. The beam here, you can see, is about 2 meters high, so the particle beam's that high. It goes around the corner, and Buckley's can make one of those a week. So they've sold 50 a year basically. And one of the things is that we're really focusing on to compete against countries where they have a labor cost advantage, is that we design our equipment together with the end clients using our physics and engineering expertise and the R&D that we're doing to make sure that they link with us, and then we'll manufacture their equipment for them. So, we're starting to make this sort of equipment in Nelson now. The machining is actually happening in New Zealand, but the assembly of the systems are starting to happen in Nelson. Let me see. This is just quickly national labs I've talked about. Universities do carbon dating type things, and I was pleased to say that the fourth-year business students did a capstone project today where looking at a business idea that I've had related to carbon dating, and it's a small accelerator kind of like that one that could probably fit up here on the stage. And they did a really good job of assessing whether there's a business opportunity there. And then lastly, just to sort of tie in with the international aspects of it, so now in Auckland, through our test facility, part of the way we connect with the industry is, again, a lot through conferences, attending by presenting technical papers. We usually have a booth as well. We'll give talks like this, actually, on tech transfer and things. And then now we're actually hosting the conference. We've won this. We won it at the last conference for negative ion beams and sources, which was in Novosibirsk, Russia, right in the middle of Russia. And it's a great way to connect, and I hope to bring these sorts of conferences to Canada as well. And we're looking to hopefully link with places like UBCO and Selkirk College to make a more advanced ion source test facility in Canada as well, to complement what we have in New Zealand. So, okay, that's my chat, so thanks.
Thank you. I feel like I'm at a special meeting. My name is Anne-Marie, and I'm here because I'm an entrepreneur. But it's taken a while to get to this position. I've had a few obstacles. I think my first one was growing up in a northern farming town called Vanderhoof. No shutouts for that? Okay. I was surprising. I was in a class of 76 graduating high school students, and 2 of us went on to post-secondary education. One guy went into agriculture, so farming, and I went into computer programming. So I moved to Prince George, and I took the second year of a computer information systems program there, and got out as fast as I could to Vancouver, and I did a co-op term in a hospital information systems vendor company. So I really got pigeonholed there. I stayed there. I've worked at several companies like that. But I've spent most of my career being in very technical roles. My first job there was being a technical programmer on a radiology system. So I'm quite familiar with some of the things you're talking about. And really, really hating blood was just walking through the back end of hospitals, through the radiology departments, nuclear medicine, and the things that they do to people there, you wouldn't believe it. So it was horrible. So basically my second obstacle, I'll say, is that my happy place is in a backroom coding, where they send the pizza under the door and I don't have to talk to anybody. So that's been a challenge for me. My favorite form of communication is electronic. So if I look at a hairdresser and I have to phone them, I'm probably not going there. So my third obstacle is I had no business training. So I've learned a lot the hard way, and I'm going to be a little bit different. I'm going to talk about my journey, which I guess I should get up there. I'll talk a little bit about the journey and some of the mistakes I made, because I've learned a lot from other people's mistakes. I think they're good to share. So as I was saying, I was in hospital information systems, and then I started to see prevention become a thing. And people were talking about preventing people from going into those horrible rooms, and I thought, that is brilliant. And I started to really pay attention to that industry and started researching it. So about 15 years ago, another programmer and myself started Core Health Technologies. We'd worked together in a few different hospital systems. And so here's 2 programmers going to start a company. So I joke around saying, so we drew straws. One could stay the CTO and one could be the CEO. And I'm not sure who won that one, but I'm pretty sure it's not me. But anyways, so this is a little bit about my company, Core Health, 15 years old. It is a software, we are a tech company, strictly technology based. We've got 36 employees, most half in Kelowna, others around BC and around the world. So we do software for large companies that actually do wellness or supply wellness to their employees. So corporate health and wellness. Actually, you mentioned Applied Materials, one of our customers. So we deal with a lot of Fortune 500s and we've won a lot of awards. But I'm not going to focus on that part. I think what I would like to do is just share some of my learnings on the rough road of getting here. My first learning was to figure out who the thought leaders were in the industry. So back then you couldn't track them on LinkedIn, so it was a lot more work. But I figured out who people were, who was talking a lot about wellness. And there was a guy in Toronto by the name of Ed Buffett. So he would be like a grandfather of wellness. So I phoned him up. Yes, I did. I phoned him up. So I phoned him up and I had a conversation, just like, what are you doing? Where do you think the industry is going to go? And I got to be friends with him. And then we started talking about building software for the industry. And we thought it'd be really good to do a joint venture together. And so we talked about that for a while. And then I learned my first really big mistake, and that was overpricing what we were going to do. So he went off and built a software platform that was competitive to mine. So, but maybe another lesson is to be patient, because he sold his company to Sun Life probably 5 years ago. They didn't maintain the system, and now they need a system, and now we're in there. So it turned out in the end, I guess. So the third thing I learned is to be authentic and to actually care about the people. So ask lots of questions, be curious, research what they like, and find out, look at bios of people in companies, read articles that people have published, and then contact those people. And they're always happy to talk about their passions too. So I did stay in touch with Ed long after we split up, but anyways, so he was always my friend. One of the tricks I've learned that works really well, actually, is when you do call them up and want to hear about them, use the phrase, well, I'm actually doing some research. And people are, oh, and nobody can say no to a student doing research. I don't tell them I'm a student, but I think that's what they think. And so you guys have a great advantage there. So they'll tell you anything. And like I said, just do your homework. Make sure you're talking to the right people. So something I think has been a success for us is, in my world, doing a business case is finding someone that's going to pay for something. So if I can't find someone that's going to pay for it, no matter how good I think my idea is, it's probably not that good an idea. So I've built up the entire system. So that's something I'm doing here. I built up the whole system by asking customers what they like, what they want, and have been very successful doing that. In fact, not long ago, we went to all our customers and said, we're going to do a release. It's going to be called It's Your Release, and you pick the top thing you want changed in the system, and we'll put it in that release. So our turnover of customers is, I think, 3%. We rarely lose a customer, and they like that sort of thing. So number 6, but I did learn, never give it away. Like when you're doing a pilot, when you want to get information from people, no matter, if you give it to them, they won't treat it with any respect. And it's better to charge just something, because like what I've learned a lot of, you hear so many sayings like skin in the game, getting traction, all these things that people talk about. Well, I've learned about all those things. And skin in the game is a very good thing to learn about. If people put money into it, they'll actually react to it. One of the things that I've used that for is in trying to price something. So when you have a new product, it's really hard to figure out what its value is. So you pick a customer, maybe a couple of your first customers, and make them a really good deal. So they still have to pay for it, but you guarantee that they'll have that deal for a certain period, a long period of time. And then you can tell them, well, what would you pay? What's the value that it's given you? You're protected, so you can tell the truth. And they help you price it. So my last One up there is read lots. I took a picture of the books that are on my desk. And these are some of my favorites and some of the ones I've read kind of recently. And when I was looking at this, I was thinking, wow, I started with technical books. And then I read Art of the Start by Guy Kawasaki. If you have not read that, you have to read that. That is the best book ever for a startup tech company. In fact, it says, if you only have time to read 2 books, read this one twice. So I highly recommend that. And I'm happy to share this slide for anyone that wants it. So anyways, I went from that, I went into sales, lots of sales book, marketing books, accounting books, everything that I had to learn. But I think the most interesting thing is now the books I have to read, remembering I am a technical programmer, reading about how to build a culture in a growing company. Because that's really the most important thing I can do right now, is keep everyone happy and wanting to work with us. And I tell you, that is not my favorite book, but it is what I have to do. So we have to do that a lot. And the last slide I've got up here this is about my new company. This is for you technical people. It is a device that can read proteins in any liquid. And we're using it first because my first company is in the corporate wellness space. I was looking for something that could tell people what their food is doing inside of them. I wanted a device like a watch that I would look at and it would be red. That means don't eat, you're storing fat. When it turns green, okay, you can eat something. And I wanted it that simple. And it took me a long time to find the right researcher, found Jonathan Little at UBCO. And he goes, oh, that's easy. You want to read insulin. Oh, okay, great. How do we do that? Well, we pull out our needles, we draw blood, we send it to the lab, we wait 2 days. And I'm like, no, that's not going to work for employees. We're not allowed to do that. So we now have a device that can read proteins using antibodies from saliva. So it's quite a breakthrough. We've got a lot of attention for this one. We expect to be shipping devices in April. Don't write that down because you know how research goes. But anyways, I think this has a good example of having to reach outside of your comfort zone. When I was building this, I was thinking this will be perfect for Weight Watchers because insulin is the hormone that drives your body to store your fat. The more insulin you have, the more fat you store, and you have to bring it down in order to lose weight. So something like a Weight Watchers, this is perfect because people can find out where their insulin is, eat pasta, see what happens, eat a muffin, see what happens, exercise, see what happens. So it's perfect for them. So just a couple weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, I thought, okay, I'm going to give you my best secret of all. If you want to make a connection with someone, you go to the top, you go to the CEO, you email them on a Saturday morning, because all CEOs read their email on Saturday morning, and there isn't a lot coming in. So you email, I told her the story of what we're doing, and she ignored it, which you would expect. And so a week later, I emailed one line to her. I actually wrote it down, because I was pretty impressed with this one. Anyways, I said, I know you're busy, but our device could change everything for you and Weight Watchers. The first non-invasive testing of your primary metabolic hormone, insulin. Next day, message back. Thank you for reaching out, connecting you with Gary, our Chief Science Officer, so he can learn more. So I think I'm living proof that you can live your entire life out of your comfort zone. I am also here to tell you that it's okay to get ignored, and it's okay to be told no, because no doesn't mean no. This is what I learned from my sales experience. No just means not now. My example was Sun Life, right? No doesn't mean no. You just haven't convinced them yet, or they're not ready, one or the other. So I would say just never give up. That's my best advice for you.
So our next speaker, I've known for several years, Keith MacIntyre. He is a man who wears many hats and will have a lot of experiences to be able to share with you. Most of you will know Keith as the CEO and founder of Big Bear Software, headquartered in Penticton. Big Bear now has offices here in Kelowna as well as in Calgary. Big Bear does custom software development. Keith and his team have helped over 60 companies over the past 2 years, ranging from large companies like MacIntyre, QHR, to Can-Do Rail, Sturculum, as well as working with startups, helping them to produce their MVPs and various other things along the way. Keith is also involved in sort of a relatively new venture of his, a company called MedActive, where he's CEO. And it's a company that provides high-quality cooler bags for the personal transportation of temperature-sensitive medicines. As well, Keith, like many of the others, is very involved in building his startup community in Penticton. Keith has always been a champion for the tech community in Penticton. He was very involved in their taking a leading role in their Smart Cities Challenge applications, and a vocal advocate for Penticton in that challenge. Keith also more recently has taken on the role as president of the Okanagan School of the Arts and the Shatford Center in Penticton, where he has really taken a lead in revitalizing not only the Shatford Center, but also pooling a number of the technology companies in the Penticton area and creating a bit of a hub there, both to sort of revitalize and create sustainability for the art school, but also to build community. So Keith, I'm sure, has a lot to share with us this evening, so come on up.
It's kind of hard to bat cleanup when everybody hit a home run before you. It's a lot of pressure. I have a couple of regrets. One, I forgot how big the screen is, and that I didn't put my designers on my presentation. So this should be fun. So yeah, when Camille asked me to speak today, I jumped at the chance. Increasing my speaking engagements is really on my goal list for the next year. I'm always looking for ways to get out of my comfort zone. I'm really honored to be here and to be considered a mind-blowing tech leader. So when I saw the invitation and the subject matter for the evening, I was even more pleased to be here and share some of my journey with current and future entrepreneurs. While my company is currently growing fast and I have 2 other companies that are on the verge of success, this wasn't always the case. I'll share a little bit about how I learned to attend networking events with at times crippling social anxiety, how I overcame my youthful arrogance brought on by being a high performer and an engineer, and how I crawled my way back from a business disaster in 2016, which left me with no revenue, no employees, and no contractors. First, a bit about where Big Bear is today and where it came from. So I started the company 16 years ago. I had no money, no ideas, nothing but willpower and desire. I almost went bankrupt 3 times. First time 5 months in with a mortgage and a newborn in the house. Now we currently have a team of 20 people, with the bulk of them in the Okanagan and in Calgary. And our current past clients, as Mike mentioned, include MacIntyre. We built a booking system for them that's in all their stores across Canada. QHR Technologies, C4I Consultants. Over the course of 14 years, I built most of their software products, including a military tactical simulator, mostly for Middle Eastern armies, emergency and disaster management simulator for U.S. Army, used that for chemical and nuclear disaster training, and a pandemic flu simulator for the Center for Disease Control, which they used until the swine flu hit and they started doing instead of training. And most recently, Innovate Calgary, so working with the Impact team at the University of Calgary, building the Tracker platform, which is helping medtech companies get through the FDA, Health Canada, and EU regulatory processes quicker. Also, in March of this year, I became the Canada-wide exclusive distributor of MedActive medication cooler bags, a unique and amazing suite of products that have been sold for almost a decade in Australia and Europe to help those with temperature-sensitive medications live their lives better. There's nothing like this in Canada, and I couldn't not bring it in. And this winter, we're launching our first product through Big Bear Innovations. It's a safety device for children on ski hills to help lost children and ski patrol find injured skiers faster. So in the summer of 2016, I got a little bit lazy. I had a nice contract with a defense company. I was working 6 hours a day. I had a full-time contractor. I decided I was going to enjoy the summer, and then I was going to work on fulfilling my lifelong vision for my company later. Almost immediately after I decided that, my one and only client at the time hit financial difficulties and terminated all their contracts. At the time, I was owed $50,000, and I wasn't sure I was ever going to get it. This woke me up in a real hurry. However, counterintuitively, I didn't just jump right back in and trying to attract clients and do what I had always done. I actually spent most of the summer riding my bike, thinking about what I wanted to do next. I'm a talented coder. I've written software that competed against billion-dollar US Army software and won on performance and usability. I've written touchscreen voting software that was one of the top systems of its time. I was the first person to put a Wi-Fi card in a voting machine, and I kind of regret that. Ours was really secure, but I can sell. I can really do anything. And I realized that I could likely run any type of business. And so do I actually want to run a software company? And the answer is yes, but not the way I'd done it before. I realized I no longer wanted to write software myself at all. I've done it for 20 years, and I've had enough. So I drew a line in the sand 7 years in the future, coinciding with when my youngest son would be graduating high school. And I began to visualize what I wanted my company to be, who I wanted to be, and more importantly, well, not more importantly, as important, what the community I lived in wanted to look like. And it all came together one day in my first float tank session. And if you've never tried floating, like 90 minutes of sensory deprivation is absolutely incredible. It's part of my monthly routine now, and it's visionary thinking, quieting the mind. It's absolutely incredible. So after my first float tank session, I had my painted picture, my vision for the future. So I looked forward and I saw myself standing in front of 20 to 25 people, my employees, with my sons at my side. And I was describing the day that I decided what I wanted my company to be. And so I saw ourselves as a team of community builders, making great software while giving back to the communities that we lived in. And we had several wildly successful software products, and we were doing things that had a purpose. Now, a little over 3 years later, we're not only on track, but on pace to exceed those expectations. So how did I do it? I forget what my slides are, actually. There we go. How did I do it? How did I go from a little-known software company in Penticton to a sought-after tech leader who has helped grow the tech community in the Okanagan and being asked for advice on how to grow it in Calgary? Honestly, I got no clue. No, I'm kidding. I know exactly how we got here. But first, I want to back up a little bit. I think some of this might resonate with some people in the crowd here. So I'm actually an introvert. I'm super shy. I remember my first networking event in Penticton about 9 years ago, and I could hardly talk to anybody. Early in my career, I got some sales experience with the voting systems, and that really helped a lot with that anxiety. And I was arrogant. I was an engineer. Top performer. I really thought I knew everything. I used to go to conferences and just tell people how great I was, what I had done, and collect business cards. I see this a lot with people that are new to business. You're really excited to tell them who you are, what you have, what you're building. Nobody cares, at least not until they've connected with you. No matter how cool your idea is, if you don't have meaningful conversations with people, they're not gonna even hear what you're saying. So now when I go to a conference, I have meaningful conversations with just a few. And I spend a lot of time connecting those people with other people at the conference. Build trust and listen. And then I hit them with the background of what we've done. And what this does is it kind of exponentially grows your network at the conference, where you actually have people excited to tell people about what you do. It's a lot less work, too, and it's easier to keep track of the business cards. 8 years ago, I joined the Junior Chamber International, and I learned the value of volunteering. I didn't really realize why people wasted their time on that. I obviously saw the light. 5 years ago, I ran for school trustee. So I had 5 weeks to do a marketing plan. I learned about myself, how people perceived me, and I basically ran the campaign almost entirely on my own. I'd been really involved with Accelerate Okanagan. I was decently well known in the community, but I had really retreated in that period, so I almost had to start from scratch. On the advice of a marketing consultant, I started writing a column for the Penticton Western called Tech Brew, and I didn't realize just how much reach this had, so I wrote it for about 2 years. I'm still technically columnist, but I think I've written one in the last year. But people from all over who were thinking of moving to the Okanagan and Penticton in particular, they were reading this and they were seeing it and they were seeing how a tech community was being built. I remember being in this room one day and people were like, what's happening in Penticton? Yeah, it was really fascinating. And then I created Tech Brew. So this is just a monthly beer meetup, and I thought I'd get maybe 5 to 10 people out a month coming. There's now over 400 members in this group, and at its peak, we were having 40 to 50 people coming out a month to this monthly beer meetup. 7 to 10 new people to the region, mostly from the Lower Mainland. It was quite fascinating. Sorry, I lost I'm still working on not needing a script so much. So, yeah, so I got that reputation built back up again. Jumping ahead here. I had to take on some projects that required me to code for a while again, but I kept it in my vision that I wasn't going to write code anymore. So I was focused more on attracting talent than I was on sales. And so I looked for any event I could go to that would benefit both the community and my business. So I stopped volunteering for things that didn't directly benefit my business. And it's okay to be selfish and selfless at the same time. They can work together just fine. So, but I generally enjoy helping the communities that we have presence in, and it's built a really high degree of trust with my team and with our clients. So rarely do we get questioned anymore if we can do the job. It's really, are we a good fit, and do we like to work with each other? Within a year and a half, we had large clients and a growing team. While researching tech for the ski tracker, came across a technology called LoRaWAN. I was talking to the hardware manufacturer, and I had about 300 ideas in one weekend. And somebody mentioned the word smart cities, so I Googled smart cities, and I found the federal government had a smart cities challenge where communities across the country had a chance to win a $50 million prize. Penticton chose the $10 million prize. So I wrote an article in the newspaper declaring Penticton the winner. I crashed the city Christmas party and convinced the CFO of the city to back us. It was this, 6'5" guy. It was really fascinating. But he LinkedIn'd me that night and he said, "Wow, you got me really fired up. Tell me more about this." And so we led this as almost an entirely community initiative in partnership with the city. We had surveys that thousands of people were answering. This giant blue number 10. Hundreds and hundreds of people took pictures of it. It excited people. We had politically, like John Horgan, Andrew Scheer, mayors, MPs. It was just a fascinating experience in a matter of months. However, that was a little bit too much community involvement, if I'm completely honest, and it almost destroyed my company and my team. But however, 2 years later, the knowledge that we gained, the connections, the credibility, the ideas, it's paying dividends, not just for my company, but also for the community that we live in. So I don't regret it. Back up. It is a bit finicky. Currently I am the president of the Okanagan School of the Arts and trying to revitalize the Shatford Center. So it's a 98-year-old old high school, and it's traditionally, in the last 10 years, been run by the organization, and it's a hub for arts community. And one of the things in the Smart Cities Challenge we realized in Penticton, and I imagine it's the same in communities across the Okanagan, is there's not enough places for people to congregate and collaborate. I mean, this is an amazing space. So much happens in this building, and we need more things like that. And so it seems like it's kind of unrelated for me to be president of an art school. I'm not an artist. I didn't even know what felting was until we had a course there. But just seeing the impact that it can have on the community is really great. And one of our long-term goals is my son drew this. So one of our long-term goals, we're going to build an innovation castle. It's just a fascinating idea that it's kind of our big, hairy, audacious goal. I don't have time to go into it, but I love the picture. So the Shatford Center is kind of practice for that, and we're potentially doing something in West Kelowna that might be quite exciting too. So just my advice to you, have meaningful conversations with people, listen more than you talk, and get out of your comfort zone any way that you possibly can. Running for school trustee was terrifying. Doing a Pet Kucha talk on mental health and entrepreneurship with my son in the front row was the hardest thing I ever did, but now nothing scares me. bad decisions. Bad decisions are almost better than no decision. You don't have to have the answer, just start. Find support groups, coaching, talk to people. Don't be afraid to discuss your idea. If the idea is easy enough to be stolen, you probably shouldn't do it. I have a coach, Holly, from Leading Edge Performance Coaching. I talk to her once a week. I have a monthly forum group through the Entrepreneurs Organization where I can talk confidentially about my business, personal life, everything. These things are completely invaluable to me as a business owner. I don't have all the answers. I still struggle with my fears a lot. I can sense myself holding back right now a little bit with my 2 new businesses, but I'm going to get past that. And to paraphrase Pablis Holman, I saw him speak in Seattle, just a fascinating human being. He was at a Singularity University event. If you haven't heard of Singularity University, follow that. It's incredible what they're doing. So let's stop focusing on the next great app and making the most money. Let's do things that have a purpose. Instead of focusing on becoming the next billionaire, what if we focused on becoming the next company that impacted 1 billion lives on the planet in a positive way? I can't say why I feel like we can change the world exactly, but I think a large part of it has been seeing the impact that we've been able to have on the local community, and I think this can be replicated on a global scale. So thank you. I'm really excited to see what you all do with what you learned from tonight, and I'm really looking forward to some questions, hopefully some hard ones.